going on, everybody? Welcome back to what might be my favorite Going Deeper episode of all time. Now, technically, we've only been doing the Going Deepers for a couple months.
You can still have a favorite.
But it's it was just like a really honest conversation. By the way, this is a long fucking episode. I don't know how, like, as we're recording it, we're going to like try to shorten it, but like it might be longer than normal. We don't typically have short episodes to begin with, but it's going to be longer. So stick with us. First, we have Clayton. Then Clayton and Susie comes in. I thought we had a really nice update with Clayton on his journey, both as a person, his reflective thoughts on AFR and his time on the show. We learned more about Clayton and Susie's relationship, how they complement each other, a little bit more. I thought the drama, the Clayton not cheating scandal that has since been clearly debunked. But I thought there was a really hysterical story from Clayton's point of view when that all went down. And then for our mediation call, my friends Matt King and Patricia Flach are our guests, who are our first in-studio mediation call. We really get into the weeds. It was a very relatable mediation call about is it okay to express, say, I love you or in love, like, to how careful should we be on the words we use to express, like, how would you describe it? I'm
like,
trying to...
when you have a friend crush on someone or you really look up to them and you like express that by saying like, oh, I love you, or I'm like in love with you. Like, can that ever really be like a platonic thing?
Yeah.
Should that be happening in front of your significant other?
And the reason why I loved the Matt and Patricia's like conversation, which really got into just how careful sometimes we need to be and how we say things when we feel upset, and how careful we need to be when we're receiving criticism, because it's very easy to get defensive, especially when we put a lot of effort into a relationship, and just, it's such a nuanced conversation. And I really appreciate Matt and Patricia coming in to talk about what was obviously like a sensitive topic, something that brought up some real vulnerability in a relationship that they've gotten through it. But like, I think it's really an incredibly relatable fight. Discussion. It might not be like specific to what you thought about, but every couple has not seen eye to eye about some version of this, and how you both interact and communicate with people of the opposite sex, that despite your overall confidence and security in the relationship, you might feel triggered by something. And then how do we go about like communicating that and making the other person feel heard and seen, and how do we address it without avoiding conflict?
And how do you navigate couples having different standards about stuff like that?
Yes.
And how do you communicate that and what's fair?
Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy it. So if you are tuning in to listen to Matt and Patricia because you're fans of them and you're not Bachelor fans, I think there's a great takeaway and some interesting stuff with Clayton and Susie. And if you are obviously a lot of Bachelor fans tuning into this, if you don't know who Matt King and Patricia are and you like our mediation calls, just listen anyways. But I promise you, it'll be some really good, fun, relatable stuff. Don't forget to send in your questions at asknick@castmedia.com, cast with a K, for Ask Nick calls or mediation calls. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed recording it. And if so, give us 5 stars. I love you. Can't thank you enough for choosing us. I feel like an airline. We know you have a lot of options in the audio space. Thank you for choosing us.
Here at Viall Files,
you could be a captain.
We put our listeners first.
Come back soon. We won't put you on standby.
Put your AirPods in before assisting others.
So anyways, thanks for choosing us. Clayton, welcome back.
Hey, Nick, thanks for having me, man. It's been a little bit of a minute. I almost think I forget how to do these now. I think a little bit has changed since the last time I've been on the airwaves.
Yeah, it has. I mean, how many, it felt like, have you done a lot of podcasts since AFR?
You know, I started doing podcasts, but switching gears over different subjects. I've started to talk more about mental health, and that's been exciting. So more along those lines, just as far as my life experiences with where I've faced adversity in my life.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, it's our first time getting a chance to catch up with you since the time on the show. We had the pleasure of talking to Susie right after AFR. As you know, we're big fans of her on the show, and I think a lot of people were really impressed with her, and I think even kind of shared some context in your relationship that people even immediately listening to her helped better understand the dynamic of the relationship. We were pretty hard on you. Like I was hard on you during AFR. Going back to that time, I'm curious, like that fallout, like what was that personally like for you? And like, it must have been difficult to hear all the criticism, and it seems like you're in a good headspace now, but how did you go from that criticism, whether it was me or other people in Bachelor Nation talking about things versus where you are now, and how did you get there, and kind of talk about that journey that you had mentally?
Yeah. So for me, it's been, I heard a lot, and I think I realized as I've taken time to reflect, I've been going to therapy now, and I've done other forms of self-reflection as well. And what I found out that I was doing was, at the end of the show and with all of the interviews that I was going on, I was really trying to salvage my image, my character. I was trying to defend, and I was so hung up on that. And really, I felt backed into a corner. So I was doing everything in my power to try to say, whoa, like this is how I actually am. I swear I didn't mean to hurt anybody. And I said that time and time and time again. But what I realized was, as much as I explained, oftentimes those explanations can sound like excuses. And I had to dive deeper and question, why is it that people aren't understanding? It's not that, and what I realized, it's not that they're not understanding. They're upset, maybe not with my intent, because they go, okay, like I bet I saw, and people said, I don't think he intended to be a bad person. I don't think he intended to hurt these women, but he did. So that's what we're upset about. It's about the results of your actions. And as I've taken the time to really let that settle in, I realized that perception is reality. So even though I might have perceived my reality to be different and how I handle the situations, I hurt people. Therefore, I have to understand that frustration and be able to see that for what it is. I couldn't see it because I was too busy defending my character, when I realized that I was probably just digging a deeper hole trying to defend, when I should have just accepted responsibility, accountability, and understood that I hurt these people. I hurt a lot of people that watched the show, that it brought up bad memories. And if I would have just been able to stop trying to be so, I guess, selfish and try to protect my own image and just put myself in other people's shoes. And this is where, again, I think you said it. You said I lacked empathy. I believe you said that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I did, yeah.
Okay. And yeah, so, at first I heard that, but it was always the follow-up. And you didn't say this, but I heard a lot of people said that. And they said, he lacks empathy and he's a piece of blank, or he doesn't deserve to be happy, or he's a terrible human being. And I became so defensive because I was hearing that second half of the statement. And I basically didn't want to hear any of it because that second half was so extreme that I'm like, man, I'm not a bad person. I deserve to be happy. But I couldn't see the first part.
Yeah.
And I think now I realize that I unknowingly did lack some empathy. And a lot of that stemmed from, I couldn't put myself in those other women's shoes because I didn't even know where my own 2 feet stood. I was so confused, so lost, and wanting to try to make sense of things. So I was just really focused on myself. And I didn't really take the time, or I was just so hyper-focused on trying to defend me that I never took the time to set in their position and say, okay, listen, like, how are they feeling about this? I just wasn't able to do that then, but I see it now.
No,
I do see it now.
It makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you being so kind of honest and vulnerable about that. One question I wanted to ask you, and you've kind of already answered it, but just in case you want to add more to it, last time I had you on this show, I asked you if you had any regrets, and you said, I wish I didn't fall in love with multiple people, which is a fair thing to say. But it also kind of focuses on your feelings, where in the sense of like, we always talk about on the show how we can't help how we feel about any situation or people. Like, our feelings are valid and they kind of show up. but how we kind of judge, character and how we judge maturity in people and how we judge emotional intelligence in people is how they handle their feelings when whatever they're feeling kind of pops in. And I'm wondering what how would you answer that question now in terms of like what do you regret if anything, or more specifically, what would you do differently reflecting back on those moments where things kind of got messy and got you in trouble? Yeah, what would you do differently? And maybe a way to answer that question is a year from now or 6 months from now, there'll be a new bachelor and they might call you up and say, do you have any advice for me? What would be that advice that you would give?
Yeah, I think I was giving this advice, and I think it still holds true after the show. I realized I shouldn't have made those assumptions. I regret the fact that I made assumptions and I thought that me and the women all saw it the same way as far as where we were at, and it wasn't the case. And with that, I should have been able to, ask more questions, see where the women were at before I made these really tough decisions. Be a little bit more sensitive. I think sometimes I am a little blunt and I come out with things and just say it as they are. But some people appreciate that and some don't. And again, I certainly could have just approached certain circumstances better. And I would tell somebody that in the future, a future bachelor, I'd say, listen, you can always over communicate because it never hurts to. And if it does hurt in a way, well, sometimes I know the truth can hurt at points, but you're better off at least being fully transparent and honest. I still believe, even though some people there was at points where people said, I don't know why he's saying this. I wouldn't say this out loud. And I could certainly see that. But I think, again, just asking more questions, over communicating, then you're going to be able to know exactly where those other women are standing. Then you can place yourself in their shoes and you can have empathy and you won't train wreck the entire experience by trying to figure out where you're at. You got to figure out where you stand first, but I think that's where I failed.
Yeah.
And if I had to go back in time, I would take more time at night to sit up for another hour instead of get that extra hour of sleep and say, where are you at right now mentally? Where do you stand? Okay, once you figure out where you're at, now it's time to go a step further and figure out where they're at.
I really like that you said that. And I know it's not easy to talk about and it's not easy to admit fault ever for a lot of people. So I commend you. And just talking to you now, like you in the short period of time come across as someone who you can kind of see the growth, at least from my point of view. I don't know if Allie and Amanda feel the same way, but you kind of see that reflective kind of point of view. And I'm glad that one thing you would do differently and give advice for is to, empathize and more specifically check in. It was a topic of conversation and one thing we talked about on the show, whereas, and I think the sex, obviously the sex aspect is something that is a hot topic in general, regardless of when you talk about it. But, there was that point where you were like, oh, even when you said to Susie, right, you're now a girlfriend, like, why didn't you say this to me before? Why didn't you bring this up? And I think the show sometimes puts the burden of checking in on cast rather than the lead. And it's nice to hear you say that. Would you agree that in general, you think the leads, regardless if it's the Bachelorette or the Bachelor, should hold more of the responsibility to check in with the cast, even though they're the person who's being pursued?
That's a great question. My initial answer would be, I think it should always be balanced among the lead and cast. But I also believe too, that as the lead, you're in a very unique position and that holds a lot of weight as far as where you are. And you know how you feel about all of the women, but they really don't know on their side of things how you feel. So it's kind of, they're in the dark. And because of that, I think that, again, I should have just been more forward. Even if it hurt, I should have just found a way, obviously, to do it the right way, to be sensitive towards others' feelings. But I think because I was more in the know, that means I have more of a responsibility to be the one to check in and let them know where I'm at, because I found out that they were shocked to figure out where I was at the end of it all. All the final women were like, okay, oh my gosh, this is your reality? You've fallen for multiple women. How? And it was a surprise to them. And, I knew that I had fallen for 3 women, and probably I started falling maybe a week prior to that point of telling them. Should have told them sooner. So it wasn't a shock all at once.
Hate looking like a scrub at the gym, and something about guys, we sometimes wear the worst things while working out. And
Nothing gives you the ick like seeing your man at the gym and it's not good.
Ladies out there, chances are you're dating someone who is embarrassing you while they run around the block in your neighborhood or at the gym, and there's something you can do about it, and that's with 10,000. No more dad shorts at the gym. Being a father is a great thing, but there's no reason to have to look like a dad when you go to the gym. 10,000 makes the highest quality, best fitting, and most comfortable training shorts I've ever worn, and you can wear them too. The 7-inch interval short is the most popular and most versatile style, perfect for gym days, spinning, short runs, HIIT, and backyard workouts. The versatile shirt is the perfect workout shirt. Lightweight, breathable, and durable.
Because like men are hard to shop for sometimes, and like this is like a good fail-safe gift that they because like it's gonna be
Practical.
soft, it's gonna be nice. They're gonna wear it like once every week or two for like the next few years.
It is a perfect gift. It's practical. It's something they will like and something they need. Hard to find
It's like
those
functional.
functional. They have stuff for interval training, stuff for running, Olympic lifting, and boxing. So you can find shorts for all the ways that you train. So there's plenty of options. Free shipping and returns, and a lifetime guarantee. So get the men in your life some very stylish, very functional athletic gear and shorts. 10,000 is offering our listeners 15% off your purchase. Go to 10,000.cc/VIALL to receive 15% off your purchase. That's 10,000.cc/VIALL. Get your frame on with Frame Bridge. Everyone loves, there's nothing like a good framed picture to make you look like an adult.
Truly, because it's like those posters without frames, no shade. But
you
they
look like you're
could
in
be
college.
elevated.
Yeah.
They could be elevated
Yeah.
with a frame.
Yeah. And you can, and framing can be super expensive.
You always see those frame stores. And they're like scary.
But even
So
beyond that,
expensive.
you then have to like print your own print elsewhere and then get the
Yeah,
frame.
it's super convenient. You got to go to a print store, then you have to go to a frame store. So inconvenient. Well, not with FrameBridge. Just go to framebridge.com and upload your photo, or they'll send you your packaging to safely mail in your physical pieces. Preview your item online in dozens of frame styles and gallery wall layouts. Choose your favorite, or get free recommendations from their talented designers. Now, this wonderfully nice framed picture of Jeff. Got it in days. Super easy. Instead of the hundreds that you'd pay for a frame store, their prices start at $39, and all shipping is free. Plus, my listeners get 50% off their first order at framebridge.com when you use my promo code VIALL. So to give someone a thoughtful gift, give them something framed. You could take a picture off their Instagram. You know, maybe it's a picture of you
Connect
and
it
someone else,
directly,
and connect
yeah.
it, and then send it framed in the mail with a little like a I love you note. To get started today, frame your photos or send someone the perfect gift. Go to framebridge.com and use promo code VIALL to save an additional 50% off your first order. Just go to framebridge.com, promo code VIALL. That's framebridge.com, promo code VIALL. Is there anything you want to add to that before we bring in Susie and enlighten this conversation up a bit?
Through this experience, again, I hope that people can see that my story ultimately ends in me having to accept what all happened and put that all on my shoulders, because I was ultimately the one responsible for all that had occurred. And once I was able to come to that point, I was able to have a sense of peace. But I had to have people around me that I trusted give me that constructive criticism. And I think it's just so important for individuals to understand, one, that no one's perfect, but that doesn't make it an excuse to take certain actions. But I think more than anything, people that struggle with mental health, people that might go through something like this, where they feel that everybody is turned against them and they start to question who they are. The best thing you can do is have a conversation with those around you that you love, because then you don't feel like you're alone. And I talked to a lot of former cast, former bachelor, bachelorettes, and they shared their stories, and it was a lot more similar than I realized. And that helped me calm myself down to realize you're not alone in this. They got through it. They're happy now. You will also be as well. So through sharing experiences, I think that's such a great thing. And I hope people can hear this message and realize that, hey, if I'm ever feeling alone, someone else out there is more than likely feels the way I do. So I just need to start having these conversations.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And I think there's a lot of truth behind what you said. I have one more question before we bring Susie on. Rachel's dad was a focal point at AFR. He was obviously outspoken, and we certainly empathize and understand the love a father has for his daughter when she's feeling hurt. But let's say you randomly ran in to Rachel's dad in a line. You turn around, you're at Chipotle. You turn around, all of a sudden it's Rachel's dad.
I'm at Chipotle.
Well, like I hear you love Chipotle.
Can we also ask what his order is specifically? Because we've heard some rumors about that.
I heard it's north of $30. Hold on, let's focus on the question at hand. You're in a line at Chipotle. You turn around and Rachel's dad is behind you. What do you say to Rachel's dad? Do you ask him a question? Do you just say anything? Do you put a baseball cap on and sunglasses and run out the door? What would you do in that situation?
Yeah, you know what? I'd probably let him get one good shot on me if he wanted to, and just shake it off, and then shake his hand and say, "Let me buy you some Chipotle at the very least, and we can hopefully sit down and talk it out." Listen, I think he honestly, for what it was at AFR, quote unquote, went easy on me. I think he realized that I was suffering a lot, and he gave me grace. He really did. I was very impressed, and it wasn't that I was deserving of it by any means, but I think he took the high road, and I have a lot of respect for that because that's his daughter, and he had to watch his daughter hurt more than she's probably ever hurt. So for him to respond the way he did, which I thought was with class, I could obviously understand he was frustrated, but he held it together. And at the very least, if I saw him in the line of Chipotle, I would want to just shake his hand and say, "Listen, thank you for giving me grace. Let me add to my order here real quick, and let's sit down so you can crush 2 bowls faster."
All right. Also, now what's your Chipotle order?
What's the order?
2 bowls to go, 2 tortillas on the side, white rice, extra white rice, extra fajita veggies, half chicken, half steak, pinto beans, corn, guac, lettuce, and 2 sides of vinaigrette. Because I'm telling you, you got to put the vinaigrette on the bowl.
Do you get cheese?
You have.
People sleep on the vinaigrette.
No cheese.
No cheese.
I also don't get cheese.
Not about you,
Amanda. Sleep on the vinaigrette.
Because I do not get cheese, and I love the vinaigrette. Clayton understands it.
Yes, you have people. It's like a hidden gem. People understand that vinaigrette is what makes the entire bowl. You pour that on top. Try it next time. It is incredible.
What do you do with the tortilla? Do you bite the tortilla by itself? Do you put it in the tortilla?
Yeah. Do you dip?
Yeah.
With the tortilla?
What do you do with the tortillas?
So I basically stack up. So I get extra rice, extra this, that, and the other. So the bowl basically probably can't even close with a lid to go, but it does. They sneak it all in there. But then I just take it out and I make my own burrito when I get back home. And so I eat the burrito and then I eat the rest with sometimes chips if I'm feeling.
Oh, hell yeah.
Guac
or salsa?
This is the breaking news that people can rely on this show.
People are probably tired of hearing me talk about that. Like, damn it, this guy just loves Chipotle and pizza. We get it. But I'm a foodie. Unfortunately,
nothing wrong with a good appetite and being a creature of habit. I am both of those.
Chipotle's old faithful.
I'm both of those things.
Yes. Comfort food is a beautiful thing. I've found a lot of comfort in Chipotle.
Is your wonderful girlfriend with you? Do you want to bring her on? Hi, Susie. I wanted to just use this time to just chat with you guys about the relationship, kind of get an update on your love. I know you guys had that scandal a couple weeks ago that you were involved in, but I feel like you guys have since talked about it. So I don't know if we need to necessarily really go into that much detail unless you guys want to clarify anything other than the fact that Clayton doesn't know how to teleport or things like that. Or was there a takeaway? Have you had any communication with this person who created this false story?
I feel like Susie was talking to her a decent amount because she didn't want her to do anything reckless. And then Clayton was like, "Susie, why are you talking to this woman?"
Yeah. What I am most curious about, in addition to anything you want to add to it, is so much about relationships is how we get through adversity. It's not as like the good is great, right? Like it's, oh, you want to have fun with your partner and you want to have a good time and you want to enjoy being around each other. But the true test of any relationship is what happens when you guys fight, or what happens when you have a disagreement, or what happens when you're just faced with adversity. Thankfully for you guys, your relationship started with adversity, so there is that. But I am curious, when something like this happens, it's very normal and understanding for people on both sides to get defensive, to even take it out at their partner, even though there's nothing to take out. Like, so what I'm really curious about is, when this story came out, how did you hear about it? And what were conversations that you two had with each other about how you guys were going to approach this mess? That's what I'm most curious about.
So, like, to be honest, the first thing I did was say, I didn't really read her message. She had sent me a message saying that she slept with Clayton the night before, and I was working. So I like briefly saw it, and I've actually had that happen in a relationship before. So I was like, dang, like, who's going to make this up? This is wild. But we are in a public relationship, and there are a lot of people that, that just want to meddle and stuff. So I was like, okay, this is weird. My heart sunk though. I didn't realize it said New York, because I just briefly looked at it, and I texted Clayton. I said, hey, like, I'm working, but if this is true, just tell me, and like, we'll figure this out privately. And
so
he's like, of course it's not true.
You had to face the internal fear that it still could be true.
Yeah. I mean, I genuinely feel like Clayton is one of the most genuine, honest, upfront people. And like, we both say that we're not the type of people that cheat. Neither of us ever have. But we say, God forbid, if a weird alternative universe, it did happen, like, we would be the type of people that tell on ourselves to our partner, because we're just super honest. Respect. Yeah. So yeah, I did initially get that feeling of like, oh my gosh, like, because I didn't really look at the message that hard. And Clayton was like, it absolutely didn't happen. FaceTime me immediately, literally in Arizona again. I had just FaceTimed him the night before. And he's like, yeah, she's saying that I was in New York last night. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, and then it was immediately like, okay, there's just like this isn't even possible. But even if she was in New York, I think, or Arizona, I'm sure we would have figured it out. However, but we basically decided I trusted him. Let's approach this together. Let's not talk about it publicly. Yeah, let's not give her attention. Because at the time, we're like, she's obviously just doing this for clout. So we were like, let's just not even acknowledge it. But then people really did start to question Clayton. And I was like, all right, let's post about it and be done with it. We didn't ask too many questions or get too crazy about our stuff until after it was over. And I was like heading to Arizona, and we like had these conversations. And then in like the first 5 hours of our road trip, we were just like, how do we handle this? Like, neither of us have had to navigate a public relationship before. So it was weird. And we just weren't equipped to know how to handle it. So it was super weird, but we just had really open and honest conversations of like, this could happen again. Like, what is our approach moving forward? It was good for us to have those conversations. They were tough conversations, but we both just were really honest and decided the best we can do is like handle it together first in private, and then figure out how we want to approach it to the world.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Did that person, I know she issued like an apology, a public apology to like her followers or just people, or to you in general. Did you speak with her privately, and did she apologize privately? And were you satisfied with that, or were you just kind of like, you know what, I don't want anything to do with this person, and which would be also understandable?
Yeah, when it pertaining to her apology, truthfully, I just wanted to move on. I didn't want to spend any more time on it. I was also talking to her privately, and I was much more upset than Susie was. And I was trying to warn her that I was like, hey, you don't want to go down this path, because when people realize that you're lying, they're going to come after you. And I said, I'm like, you don't want this. And she kind of was just like, oh, whatever, like, you did what you did. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm just telling you, this is going to backfire. And I'm really trying to help you out, because like, I don't think you realize how many people are going to come raining down on you. And then that
You're
happened.
not
And then
wrong.
she changed her tone and started
Yeah.
asking for, she's like, please tell him to stop. And I was like, delete your video. Like, delete the video and issue an apology. Like, that's all you can do at this point. I said, the quicker you do it, the quicker people will move on from this. And she finally did it. You know, I mean, did she learn a lesson? I'll never know, nor do I care to ask her. I just hope that, truthfully, that nobody tries that again, because we got the receipts ready from here on out. So I think it's just one of those things where I just looked at it like, let's move on. And Susie was great. Again, she continues to impress me with how she looks at things. Yeah, she was like, let's give her grace. And I'm like, what? I was like, I'm like, why? Like, this girl brought this on herself, and I'm over here getting, again, another thing that's coming up that's going to have people turn against me. But she was like, listen, like, we don't, Clayton, she's like, when it comes to mental health, it's like everyone's mental health matters. And right now, like, I can tell that she's struggling. So let's not like have there be a worse outcome from this. And I had to take a step back, a deep breath, and be like, yeah, okay, like, her mental health matters too. Even if she brought this on herself, I would hate to see something worse come of this.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's certainly big of both you to have that realization in the moment. Because yeah, I mean, I would empathize with like you feeling like you've taken some beatings, Clayton, and then you're like, another thing that I definitely didn't do, and it can be a challenge. Because I mean, shoot, I'd be frustrated because I mean, I am curious. She claims to have slept with this person, whoever they were, and while maybe you look like him, I mean, at what point did she not like look? Like, wasn't it obvious? Or I'm just like, she must have been so drunk
Yeah.
that she maybe didn't remember what he looked like. And do we even know if he was like, I'm Clayton from The Bachelor, or did she come up to him and say, you look like
Yeah.
Clayton from The Bachelor? And he was like, sure.
Or
Yeah.
if he really was just like, oh, you don't watch the show, I was the last one on it. And then she Googled who was the last Bachelor.
But she seemed, to your
Right.
point, she seemed pretty adamant, even talking to you, that she believed it was you, which is kind of terrifying in a way.
She was adamant.
She was, yeah. And at first she was, yeah, like, your proof isn't proof, and was laughing at me. And
Yeah.
and I just, that frustrated me, of course. I'm like, okay, like, you want to play this game and you're defaming me and my character. And I'm like, my character's already been questioned. I said, so you're now adding to this. And again, like, that's where, yeah, I was like, come on, one more thing. Like, can I just like have a week of no BS? Like, and again, but this was a difference. I don't want to compare this to like other previous, because I took actions previously that brought on a lot of the the negativity that was geared towards me. That, again, like, as I said earlier, I understand it for what it is. But this was something where I'm like, I didn't do anything. Okay, like, I was sitting in my house.
Yeah.
I was having a chill weekend before Susie showed up. I was just gonna watch some TV. I was eating pizza, and I was watching a documentary, the Kanye documentary. I'm like, life's good. I'm just chilling. My girlfriend's about to show up here in a couple of days, and then all of a sudden I go on the internet, I see it. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is this? And all of a sudden there's all this speculation. I'm like, popcorn in hand, eating pizza. Like, I can't wait to see who comes. Like, this sucks, but I'm really intrigued in the story. And all of a sudden she goes, like, who is it? And like, it's Clayton. I was like, oh my gosh, like, no. I'm like,
Wait, so you heard about the story before you realized people were talking about you?
Yeah, I popped up because people were tagging me.
What did Matt James do?
Well, that was the thing, is they said they were like, oh, this happened in this girl's from Miami or from New York. And I was like, and so then people started saying,
Matt James is
it's
from
Matt.
there.
Matt's from there. And I was like, Matt. I was like, no way. I was like, Matt's such a good dude. There's no way. And I'm just like, but I'm like, this is crazy. And then they're like, give a name. And I was like, yeah, I was like, kind of sitting there like, yeah, give a name. I'm also interested. Like, curiosity's getting to me. And then all of a sudden they said Clayton. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, you really got to be kidding me. Like, I did not.
Clayton
I'm not
thought
ready
it
for
was
this.
like reality TV that he was watching on his phone. He was like, ooh,
Yeah.
drama.
What a meta moment.
Yeah, I'm like refreshing by the minute. I was like, oh man, like,
This is juicy.
I'm watching the Kanye documentary. I got a little side, drama on this. I'm like, I'm intrigued. I'm into this just to see who's going to be caught. And then all of a sudden it was like Clayton. I'm like, okay, well, this just completely soured the mood. And now I'm going to turn off this documentary. And yeah, then I saw people start tagging Susie, and I was like, okay, well, clearly I have to address this now because she's getting tagged by 100 tags a minute or whatever it was. And then I realized, yeah, it shifted really quickly from like, I put the popcorn down, put the pizza away, and I started, trying to figure out how I was going to find a way to prove my innocence.
Well, I'm thankful and happy for you guys that it's is water under the bridge now, and it sounds like if nothing else, it in a way brought you guys closer together because it taught you guys how to handle adversity, and like it kind of created more trust, and not to like the way Susie communicated with you, Clayton. It sounds like it was a overall stressful, like a positive moment, and kind of reassured the strength of that relationship that you guys have, which is nice to see.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think it forced us to have conversations that we probably wouldn't have had. So just a better understanding of each other and how to move forward in this environment.
You guys are a very likable couple on the social media. Do you guys know that?
Thank you.
It's really. Am I the only one who feels this way? Like Nally and I were talking about. Like Nally was like, I don't know if it was yours, Susie, or Clayton's, but Nally was like, you guys are like Clayton and Susie are like very likable. And I was like, I know they're like.
Yeah, Nick embarrassed me. Nick did the most embarrassing thing when Susie was in studio. I'm sitting here staring at Susie, and Nick out of nowhere goes, Allie has the biggest crush on you, Susie. And I was like, my cover is blown.
You do have I wasn't trying to embarrass you. I was trying to make Susie feel good because it's always nice to. I mean, Susie was coming here at a time where
it was dark.
Yeah, I knew how to, I could in some levels could relate to Susie of being like, does everyone hate me or does anyone like me? So I just wanted to like throw it like, hey, you have a big fan.
Don't worry, I got you.
Thank you.
Do you know what sucks?
What, Allie?
Dry skin. And I suffer with that a lot because even if you do like a full face of makeup or like really try hard with your appearance, you cannot hide like dry, flaky, nasty skin. And the one product that has like gotten me so moisturized like throughout the winter, and I'm continuing it into the spring, is the Wonder Skin face cream because it comes in a cute little pot. They also have a little eye cream. I use both of them. I brought them to Puerto Rico because you spend all day in the sun, you get very dried out. And by the time I was ready for dinner, I was like, oh, look at my glowing, moisturized skin.
That's amazing. Well, we're talking about Wonder Skin. That's right. Like you have already heard from Allie about their moisturizer. They also have their Peel and Reveal lip stain.
It is the coolest lip product I've ever used.
What color did you get?
Because
was it like pink?
I have a few different ones.
Oh.
I'm still like deciding which one is like gonna be my go-to
signature.
But first of all, I will say also it's an Allure Best of Beauty winner, and that Allure don't lie to me. And it's like you put it on, you let it sit, you spray it, you peel it off, and then you're left with a stain.
Wonder Skin was recently on the Today Show, and they described the product as if your favorite lipstick and lip stain had a baby. People magazine says, once you try this, you'll understand why it continues to sell out. Right now, if you go to wonderskin.com and use promo code VIALL, you'll receive 20% off plus free shipping on orders over $50. That's 20% off when you go to wonderskin.com and use promo code VIALL. Seed, get your probiotic and prebiotic on. Did you know that a lot of the probiotics you might be taking don't work the way they should? And if you've taken a probiotic and didn't feel like you felt the effects, it might be because
it didn't make it where it needed to go.
It didn't make it where it needed to go. The good news, Seed has this proprietary product, Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic is the real deal.
And it's built to survive your GI tract so that it actually gets down your body where it needs to go.
Yeah, because sometimes other ones don't survive it.
Just falls apart.
By the time it gets where it needs to go, it's useless. But not Seed's Daily Symbiotic. It's a broad spectrum 2-in-1 probiotic plus prebiotic, a proprietary formulation of 24 distinct probiotic strains in scientifically studied dosages, proprietary engineered 2-in-1 capsules that protect probiotics through their digestive tract, as Allie suggested. So, take care of that gut health. It's incredibly important for your overall health well-being, your immune system, your skin health, so much more. The list goes on. Many see improvements in digestion within 24 to 48 hours, which can include bowel movement regularity and easy bloating. Start your new healthy habit today. Visit seed.com/VIALL and use code VIALL to redeem 20% off your first month of Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic. That's seed.com/VIALL and use code VIALL. Seriously, though, you guys are very, very likable. I'm curious, who is it? I don't want to assume it's just Susie, but like, where do you guys come up with this rather entertaining social media content? You seem to embrace it, Clayton, and have some fun with it. Do you guys have any behind the scenes moments of when you guys are recording some of this stuff? And I don't think most people at first would think of you, Clayton, as someone who's really enjoying the TikTok trends and some of these things, but you seem to be into it. What have you learned, and what are some things you guys are doing behind the scenes that make it so fun to do with one another?
Susie does a great job of, she's the creative mind behind everything. And I realized really quickly that she loves doing TikTok. She loves just having fun. And so for me, I realized that if I did the first TikTok, whatever, I can't remember what it was in one of the Happy Couple Weekend houses. And I just saw the excitement in her eyes and her face. And she watched it, I think, probably.
The excitement in his face.
No, but I'm saying, like, she probably watched it like 10 times. And I realized, I'm like, this is bringing so much joy to her, which makes me happy. So I started getting all the way into it. And then I started having fun with it because I was like, oh, I get to dance and be a fool. And we get to do it together. And it's really cool. I never really used to capture memories. I would just have to go off of, like, the memories that were in my mind. But I didn't ever capture them through video or photo. And when she did that one, she captured all those moments from the 4 months that we were in hiding. And I went back actually last week and watched that video again because I was like, this is so cool because it brings back so many memories. And I realized, I was like, this is so much fun to capture these because 20 years from now, we'll have these videos and we can see it for what it was and not have to be like, well, I remember it this way, you remember it this way. But like, we get to see it. And I think that's so cool. So I got on board really quickly and we just like both giving each other trouble, making fools out of ourselves. I like doing the voiceovers. I think that's a challenge to me, how close I can get it to look like I'm actually speaking, and she finds them all. And she's like, Clayton, come over here. And I'm like, so I sit down and say, we're doing a TikTok.
Speaking of that collage you guys posted, have you guys publicly addressed the choking shot of which people quickly picked up on?
Yeah, that was, I wish I could
Clayton's
say it.
blushing for anyone who's not watching the
I know.
YouTube.
It's because his grandma saw it, so it's a sensitive subject.
Grandma,
no.
Well, we talked about, unfortunately.
Yes, exactly.
Unfortunately, we talked about it, that photo in particular. We said, should we put this one in there? And I was like,
there's one of me peeing.
And the one of her peeing. And we, with those two, we sat there before she posted it. And we said, should we put these in there? And I was like, we're like, yeah, it's funny, it's goofy, it kind of encapsulates who we are. Just two goofballs. But then all of a sudden, the reaction was kind of like, oh, gross. Why would you post this? And we're like, okay, so our humor, we're finding out, isn't always well received. But again, we're both unique in our, with what we find funny. I think we have a similar humor. So we both were like, this is funny. People enjoy this or think it's stupid or just find it funny. And it kind of was mixed.
I think my take on it was just a matter of timing.
Yeah, probably.
You guys posted it obviously right after the controversy, and I guarantee you, like, if it was like, well, one, if you didn't face controversy, if you were like if it was just like generally like adoring fans of the love, people have been like, oh, this is so great, they're like into it, and if it was 6 months later, I think it had everything to do with people of having critics at the time, and you gave critics something to criticize, essentially.
Totally.
That's a good. I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head with it. It was definitely, timing's everything.
But do you like to be choked, Clayton, in bed? I guess is really the biggest thing we have to learn. No,
it doesn't
I'll try
happen.
And sneak one in there.
No, it doesn't happen. Okay, it just doesn't happen. That's all I'm going to say on it.
Again, safely, we don't kink shame on the show, but as long as
we don't,
shaming.
There's nothing wrong with it. Okay, I'm not giving up any more information on what happens.
I really enjoy you being uncomfortable, Clayton. I don't know why.
This will do it.
Me too.
This will do it to
favorite.
me. This will do it to me. Yes, like when it comes to speaking on these things, I'm pretty private about it. And that's why, like,
I'm not.
even off the first night limo entrances, some of the women came up and said certain things that were semi-sexual, and I was just like, oh gosh. And I just like laughed nervously. I was like, I don't know how to respond to this. My mom watches this. And so this is the one area that I don't typically get embarrassed by it much, but this is it. It's when it comes to like speaking on these topics. Yes, it gets me.
But your entrance was, if I'm remembering correctly, on Michelle's season, getting spanked with a ruler.
I got spanked by a ruler, all right? That's very...
There's a kink element to it, Clayton.
What a gam thing about that.
Yeah.
You knew what you were doing.
Oh my gosh, that was very... Well, and I think it's funny. Michelle was pretty hesitant with it as well. I think she was also like, oh, coming out the gate hot there, big dog. Yeah, that was a step down. I think we just kicked it up in the full gear with our little pictures. So I got to pull back the reins.
I would love to hear from both of you. One thing that you feel like since dating one another that your partner has helped you get out of your comfort zone and improve upon either an insecurity or weakness that you felt like you had. And as a result of dating the other person, you feel, like a better person or more confident and less secure. I'm curious for both of you to answer that question about one another.
Clayton's very responsible, and I'm not always the most responsible person.
How so? Give us an example.
I think I'm kind of carefree. Like in my life, I am very adventurous. Like we are very different. We contrast in so many ways, but like I'm the type of person that has gone all these different directions and like just always been like, everything's going to be fine. Like I just have this belief within me that like life is going to be beautiful because I'm going to choose that it's going to be great. Like I'm going to find the beauty in whatever it is. But sometimes I think that can fault me. Like I can find myself in situations where like, oh, this isn't like the best situation to be in. And Clayton is like very responsible, and he's just like you think like far ahead. You've got like, way more long-term goals. I guess I have long-term goals as well, but they just look differently. And so I think he's really challenged me to like think further ahead and be a little bit more responsible. So I think that, and I don't always like that push because I am very free.
Dampens your creativity. Yeah.
I mean,
hold on, I don't dampen the creativity.
No, I'm saying like that's how it might feel, but no, it sounds
exactly. That's how it might feel sometimes, and I'm like, in reality, this is actually good challenges for me. Even though I feel challenged and I'm like, I don't know that I like this feeling, but he definitely has, he brings a lot to the table when it comes to like thinking ahead and just like, smart decision making.
Clayton?
Yeah, and that kind of parlays into what she's taught me, which is to challenge myself to go outside of my comfort zone and find myself in a place that is less structured. I think I've always created structure around me wherever I can. I always had a safety net, all those things. And I often would I sometimes wouldn't push my limits all the way, or I would maybe push it in one area, but I wouldn't be willing to jump and just take a leap of faith. And that's something that she's challenged me to do. Right now I'm actually finally, for once in my life, chasing my true passions, which is, I want to speak on men's mental health or mental health in general, truthfully. And I want to share my story and go talk to high schoolers, college kids, really whoever I can to just make an impact. And I also am starting to push out fitness, educational resources to help people because I have body dysmorphia. And so I want to be able to create change the same change that I saw myself, that I started to have more self-love. And so these are my true passions. Prior to this show, prior to this entire experience, I was working medical sales, and it just wasn't my calling. It wasn't what I was passionate about. I was good at it, but it didn't like give me a renewed sense of purpose. And Susie has continually pushed me to kind of say, okay, hey, there's no structure around you right now. You don't have a traditional 7 to 3, 9 to 5 job, but just every day put in those hours, 6 to 8 hours, and whatever you're passionate at, and do something, and it'll end up coming to fruition. It's going to be a challenge. So overnight success doesn't happen overnight. but just put your head down and grind. And you'll see that, again, she traveled the world. She did all of these things where she didn't have structure, and she found peace in it and excitement, and she realized it was all going to be okay. Coming from someone like me who's always been structured, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't had a traditional job for 5 months. I'm like, oh my gosh, my life's caving in on me. It's not. Mm-hmm. So she's giving me that perspective. We balanced each other out, I think. As you can see, I feel one way where she's allowed me to become less structured. I've challenged her to be a little bit more structured, a little more punctual.
That's great. I love how you guys are.
She likes to show up fashionably late a little bit. She likes to show up a little fashionably late. So I try to get her 15 minutes.
A minute or two.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get her the whole 15 minutes is on time. A mindset that I learned from football. Show up 15 minutes earlier on time. So I'm trying to get her into that mindset. I think it's just so we're both feeding off each other.
That's great. I love to hear it. Have you talked much about having body dysmorphia, Clayton?
I've started to open up more about it. In fact, I had a really cool conversation. I was back with my friends in Missouri, and I was out one night, and there was a couple friends of friends that were there. I started just telling my buddy what I wanted to do and the platform I wanted to utilize it for good. And I had one of the guys came over to me and said, hey, I just heard you talking about it. And I wanted to sit closer to you because I couldn't hear what all you were saying. But he goes, I wanted to at least tell you that I think it's so cool that you're talking about this. He's like, because I have body dysmorphia. And he opened up to me. And this is a guy that I didn't know that well. And he just said, I have body dysmorphia, and I wish more guys would talk about it because it is a struggle that I face. But hearing you talk about it, just makes me feel that I also share something and I'm not alone in this regard. And so I've had a few of those powerful conversations. In North Carolina, I went and talked to a guy that he's creating an app for college athletes, or just former athletes, for mental health resources. And he had lost 3 or 4 friends to suicide. So I'm starting to, for me, having these conversations and realizing that if we can get this message out of just having one more conversation, just talking about the issues that plague us and make it more normal. Yeah. And you're not less of a man if you talk about these things. So I'm trying to push it out as much as possible and share my experiences. I talked about body dysmorphia on the show for one of the dates that we went on briefly, but I think it's just a matter of continuing to talk about it. And I'm comfortable with that. I don't feel like I'm less of a man. I think you're more of a man if you can talk about these things, because I've looked at the research. Just as many men suffer with body dysmorphia as women, is what a few articles that I read said. So it's more common than people seem to think.
It wasn't really discussed much when it was on the show. I mean, there's so much going on. It was kind of glossed over. But like you said, I mean, I think it's something we talk about a lot in women communities, but I don't think we address as much in male communities and with men. And being a former professional athlete, I think a lot of people assume that that's something you would never deal with. So I think you're bringing a lot of awareness. I think that's amazing. I'd love for you to just, like, in the spirit of bringing awareness, how did you realize that's something you suffer from, and what would you say to men who might be listening, or women who are listening who are in relationships with men, like warning signs that it might be something you struggle with, and where to go for resources if you are worried that you might have this thing that you're struggling with in terms of body dysmorphia?
Yeah, when it comes to body dysmorphia, I think partners, what they should look out for is look to see how often your significant other is looking in the mirror. I think that's a big sign, is every time they pass by, they kind of stop and they take a look. I do that a lot. Every mirror I pass. If I'm shirtless, the thing that I get bothered with is like my stomach area. That's just something that I feel like just never looks as defined as I want it to. Something that I do too, I'm sure people probably can see it if they pay attention to it now. When I'm out in public and I'm walking around, I pinch my stomach all the time. It's just like a habit. I just pinch areas of my body that I'm not happy with. It's almost like to remind myself, do I feel like it's skinny today, or does it feel fat? Am I pinching an inch or more? These are little things that I think you can pay attention to see if your partner is struggling with body dysmorphia, because that's what I'm like unknowingly doing, is I'm constantly reminding myself as I pinch that part of my body that's like, oh, I wish I was less there. And I think people that struggle with body dysmorphia, at least in my experience, will always be thinking about it. It'll come up throughout the day. And here I am. I mean, it doesn't matter. And even I had this conversation with my brother recently. He said, how do you still have body dysmorphia, dude? He's like, you're in great shape. And I took a in-body scan, and I was apparently 10% body fat, which is great, but like I can't see that. And at the end of the day, it's like no matter even if the numbers back up the fact that I'm not fat and I'm in good shape, people with body dysmorphia, they just feel like they don't like the way they look. And so a significant other needs to just understand that, like, hey, this is their reality. This is how they view it. And I should just be mindful of that. Don't downplay them and say, hey, like, I don't know why you're concerned about it because you're 10% body fat or you look great or whatever. That's great to remind your significant other, hey, like, you look great, you look incredible, I love the way you are. But just understand that, again, for them, they're struggling to try to overcome that, and they can't see what everybody else sees. When I look in the mirror, when I look at pictures, I don't see what other people see. I see the things I don't want to see. So I would just say that, yeah, I mean, having the conversation with your significant other and understanding that this is something that men struggle with. So don't downplay them or belittle them or say, like, you're a dude. Yeah, often it's like, that's what you people hear. It's like, this is a girl's problem. No, it's not. I mean, the research shows it's just as many men nowadays, and that's due to social media. That's due to filters and guys that are airbrushing their abs on their Instagram, and I see that, and I'm like, man, I really wish I looked like that, but they don't. They just they're out there highlighting their photos or airbrushing or whatever they're doing, sharpening the like. It's just not reality. You see them in a video, and you're like, they don't look anything like their picture. So I think it's just being aware that it's becoming worse because of social media, but long-winded explanation just to say that there are little things you can look for and looking in the mirror a lot, pinching certain parts of your body.
Probably
Negative self-talk, saying, I got to get in shape. I say that a lot. She's like, you are in shape. But making those little comments, I think, are warning signs that somebody might be struggling with it.
Well, I really appreciate you shedding some light on that. Again, a lot of people, I think, don't talk about it enough, and especially from a men's perspective. So thank you for sharing that, and I think that was really informative.
Thanks, man.
Do you have any other question? Amanda has a question.
I just have like a kind of like fun one to end on, which is just, would you guys be willing to share like an inside joke that is making you guys crack up right now?
Okay, so there's this video of a guy who does like baby talk, and it was like on TikTok. It was on TikTok, and it's like the most horrible, cringy, like, but hysterically funny thing. So and like, funny. He's like, his girlfriend's like making hot chocolate, and he's talking about like her Milky Wilky, and it's like,
voice.
I'm not doing the voice. No, but it's like just so you watch it and you cringe, but you're like, I need to watch this again. And like, I sent it to Clayton, and he was so uncomfortable. And I think I reenacted it. He was so uncomfortable. And he was like, this is like, it really made him uncomfortable, like just overall. And so I named this playlist on Spotify, like Milky Wilky, or like, I don't know what I named it, but it was my playlist for Clayton. And the fans found it, and they were like, what is this Milky Wilky play? Like, could this be, it has like love songs on it. And I was like, I was so embarrassed because I was like, if this is how we get found out because of my Milky Wilky playlist on Spotify,
this is
I'm
when,
like getting
you guys,
hot.
Yeah, this was before
I'm getting nervous.
Spoilers.
Reddit actually, they were on it. They're like, they were looking at Spotify playlists, and she made the playlist for me, and I guess they just didn't pick up on it, but they were kind of like, what is this playlist that was created? And it was, I'm like, if this is how we get found out, because
it's so embarrassing.
Milky Wilky,
Clayton with, I forget what it said. It wasn't my name.
I'm with you, Clayton. The biggest turnoff in the world is having your partner talk like a baby. It's truly horrifying.
Awful. And I love that he hates it. So of course I'm going to do it.
She's like, oh, Clayton wants some Milky? And I'm like, stop.
Oh my God.
It's so bad. Like, I knew it irked him so bad. And but it's funny between us, but I was like, if this is how we get found out, like, I will be humiliated.
Batty Zaddy with the Milky.
Batty Zaddy with the
Milky. She called me Zaddy, and that's where we thought it would a giveaway. She's like, why would she name something Zaddy? Like, Zaddy is for somebody that you date, calling somebody Zaddy. So we're like, we're going to get found out over this, and we're going to have to explain it.
Yeah.
It didn't pick up enough steam.
Thank goodness.
Well, thank you for that, too. That was a great question. Amanda, even better answer.
Now everyone's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. Clayton, I really appreciate you and your vulnerability. I think I speak for everyone listening. I hope I do when I say I'm really excited to see that growth. I think it's pretty evident just talking to you today versus last time. And I think it's always nice to have grace for people. We're all unfinished products. We all have made mistakes. We have all had things we need to apologize and do better for it. And a big part of life is doing that and helping ourselves and our partners to help other people not make mistakes in the future. So I really appreciate you and your vulnerability, Clayton, and you guys are a wonderful couple. I'm rooting for you guys. I think a lot of people are. You're fun to watch. It's a very endearing couple, and I enjoy your content. So keep on keeping on, and I'm hoping for nothing but the best for you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
When
thanks so much.
when you get like if you're not engaged, right? You're not engaged.
No.
I don't know. It's
No.
like The Bachelor, so you
Nick.
forget. You forget.
You never know.
You never know.
You don't think I would know if my
just
crush was engaged?
Open invite to like announce your proposal on this show. You probably won't. I understand.
I will just go ahead and say I appreciate the offer, but I know places that if when we get to that
Like if you
point,
want to come on and get on one knee right here. Oh, you have places
need
picked
you-
You're
out.
welcome to.
Yeah.
I need you to grab a bunch of sands, throw it all on the ground. I need you to bring the ocean to your office, and
Oh.
maybe that just- I'm just-
He's
Okay, a
thought
beach
about
proposal
it.
for Susie.
Viall
Uh,
on the road.
Is it something
hold on.
that
I guess
do you think it's going to happen like in the next year or so? Do you guys what's the relationship plan? No.
we're not
No,
putting a
we're just
timeline on
chilling.
it.
Okay, when
No,
you
I
do
think-
when you do get engaged, and then you'll do your Instagram post, but then come on the show
Okay. We will.
and then walk us through what that moment was like. I love how I'm just being like your stupid fucking Instagram post about
I
your
know the
love.
way you're saying that. You're like, go ahead and just post about it.
Post about
Right.
it and get all the credit.
I've
Nick,
criticized
I
you for
see-
lacking
I see-
empathy, and I
hey.
want the exclusive.
Yeah.
Listen, Nick, I see your little sappy posts from time to time. Don't act like you're above it.
Yeah, hey. I am
Shots are being fired.
I have no apologies about my sappy heartfelt
And you
post.
shouldn't, because if you're happy, that's all. Everyone's happy for you.
Thank you guys so much. You guys are a delight. I appreciate it, and I look forward to your love story as it continues and coming back in the show to talk about it. All right, but before we let Clayton and Susie go, don't leave us, because we have an amazing mediation call with my friends Matt King and Patricia Flach for a very relatable topic. It came up at Coachella. And then I was like, ooh, would you guys come in for mediation? So we're going to say goodbye to Clayton and Susie. Thank you guys for coming. And up next, an amazing mediation call. Matt, Patricia, welcome.
Hey!
Thank you.
It's our first
I know.
in-studio mediation.
I know.
Thank
I'm
you. It's
excited
an
to be
honor.
here.
Thank you so much for being subjects and trusting us with your love life.
Yeah, no, when we talked about this at Coachella,
I don't even know how it came up at Coachella, but it was.
you definitely
I probably
kind
brought
of
it
kicked
up.
back up the argument.
And I don't remember exactly how it came up.
You definitely, I think, teased me about who we were about to go see. Like, we were meeting up with friends, and you were like, oh,
Yeah.
here's the thing. When we're about to go into this topic of what we're talking about, we're not going to say names, okay?
No names
No
are
names.
necessary.
We may hint at who the person is, and the audience can piece that together, but you're not going to discover anything that juicy or good.
No,
Because it's not
as
about the tea, it's about the dynamic
The
and how,
communication.
which is always the goal of these
miscommunication.
mediations, is how do we relate to couples who are in overall loving relationships, but in every loving relationship, we don't always see eye to eye. We come from different points of view. We can trigger one another. We can, play on each other's insecurities, and then how do we work through it? That's really the goal.
Right. And we have sorted this out over the past month or so. So we're happy in this moment right now. But we think that, there is a truth to this issue that we came across, and that I think it's worthy for every couple to hear and listen to. Because
And
I
every
think,
couple can relate to it. in
Yeah.
a
And I
sense.
gotta say, when it came up at Coachella, there was a moment being a third party being like, are they about to fight on this shit? Like, I was like, oh shit, man. Like, one of those, like, how sometimes in like public forums, like, or baseball games or events, and all of a sudden, like, a couple just starts getting into it because
and it's not even like the fight, but it's this argument where you need to pull in as many other people onto your side and share it out with the entire group.
Exactly,
You know,
exactly.
like, okay, can you hear what she's getting mad at me about? Because I feel like I'm totally in the right about this. And then same way
I
with
feel
her.
the same way also.
And it's
Yeah.
and I think it's a type of topic that people can understand both points of view. So
Right.
let's
Let's hop into it.
Let's hop
Okay.
into it. Why don't you set the stage of how this even came to be?
Okay. Do you want me to set the stage first?
Yes, you said it, babe.
It's one of my friends who I introduced to Matt. You know, he started off by being like, "Oh, I really love this person. She's so cool. I love her work, blah, blah, blah." Then it turned into like every single time we see her, all I wanted to do was talk to her. Every single time we would get home, all I wanted to do was talk about her. And then it got to where, like, you know, when we're going out, he would not even like come speak to me. He would only speak to her.
Okay, hold
It's
on.
true.
Now, see, now I'm already getting
No. Okay, let me finish my
Okay,
side.
Yeah,
Let me finish my side, and then
rules
you
of-
can say yours.
Rules of mediation, we give each other
Thank
the
you.
floor. So
Thank
it
The
is
floor is yours,
Patricia's
babe. Go for
floor.
it.
I can understand why Matt might be
Because we're just coming out
Shifting?
the gate so hot, and I'm always like, no, that's not how I would preface it. But
you will
go
have
on.
your
You will have your
opportunity.
turn.
You'll have your opportunity. This is Patricia's POV.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And so then it got to where my friends kind of started noticing it and being like, okay, that's kind of weird. Matt only wants to sit there and talk to her, doesn't even realize that you're in the room, whatever. Then it was like one night we were out only talking to her, and then all of a sudden he looks at her and goes, "I'm in love with you." And I was like, what in the world? You can't just say that to somebody. And then it was a week before my birthday, I think that happened. And I was like, okay, that's really weird. I don't like him saying
May I
that.
have a question?
Yes.
Up until this point, have you said anything
I
to
told
Matt?
him that it makes me uncomfortable how he sits there and talks to her and doesn't give me any attention.
Okay.
And then like when you hear his side, it all makes sense. But I think it was a lack of miscommunication on.
And at this time when you were feeling this way, because it's a totally relatable thing to
Right.
feel insecure about. I get it. What was your level of insecurity? Like, was it just like, hey, I'm not worried about anything going on, but I'm still uncomfortable? Or did you get in your head?
Oh, I got in my head 100%.
You got in your head.
Because then it was like my birthday, and I didn't want to talk to him about it until after my birthday. Because I was like, what if I talk to him about the situation and he really is in love with her? Like
Okay.
emotionally, I don't know, like some sort of in love with her. So I was like, I'm going to wait until after my birthday. But then somebody kind of brought it up to him, so we had the conversation before.
And
but-
why did you? I mean, I get it was your birthday, and you don't want to ruin it, but
Because I didn't want to ruin it if he was.
you were legitimately. You thought
Yeah,
I'm gonna wait because
I want to enjoy my birthday.
I'd rather have him pretend he's in love with me on my birthday.
than
Only
The floor is still y'all's. Whenever I can come in, please let me know.
no, I'm
But,
just saying. We're just speaking from. I'm trying to understand her point of
I
view.
got in my
Yeah.
head 100% because my friends started noticing him speaking to her a lot.
I just find it wild that like you subconsciously decided, not that, like that. If in fact he was in love with this person, you would rather
Him pretend.
and pretend to still be in love with you on your birthday, so you still enjoyed your birthday. Which, by the way, great time.
I guess you can kind of say your side and then we'll talk about the addressing it.
Okay, I want to give a little bit more clarification about who this friend is. This friend is another content creator who, yes, we met through Patricia. I was already a big fan of this person.
You just
before we
admired
met.
her as an artist.
Yes, I love the video she puts out. I think she's insanely talented in the work that she does. So yeah, I'm a big fan. So I'm out with friends one night, and one of our friends comes up to me and she goes, "Hey, is it true that you're in love with so-and-so?" Because I heard that Patricia's really upset about it, and a lot of people are really
That's how you
concerned.
first heard about this.
This is how I first heard that this was an issue. And I'm
Oh.
like, wait, excuse me?
So you talked about it with your friends first.
Because another friend heard.
Well, because all of them noticed it as well. And so they kind of all,
But did they notice or did you say it?
they noticed. I didn't say a thing.
So a friend overheard me at the bar talking with this girl.
Gotcha.
And she's, saying everything that's lining up for her in Hollywood right now, what she's like working on. And I said, you know what, so-and-so, I love you. I think you are so incredible. I'm a big fan
Sure.
and I'm rooting for you. Another friend heard that I said, I love you to her. And then that got around that he really thought that I was saying to this girl that I love you. And this is my issue. Maybe I listen to Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard too much. When he has on a guest and he's a big fan of them, he tells him he
emotes.
loves
Yeah,
them.
he
He
emotes.
even says to the point that they're his soulmate, jokingly. Just sharing enthusiasm and love for another creator out there. And that's when I said, I love you. By no means
You said I'm in love with you. Let's preface with
I'm
that.
in love
and
with
that's
you
even
as a
worse.
fan. But really, this person compared to you think that I love them that much. Obviously, I'm hamming it up the way we're talking right now, and I'm giving you a hard time about it. But I don't love her that like that.
That much.
No, I don't.
But but the point is, it's not the point, because it bothered you, and you. I think here's I have a question for you.
Yes.
At the point when Matt finally became aware of this, like what is going on, when someone came up to you, you talked to Patricia. How quickly did you feel confident in how quickly did you trust that your relationship was more than fine, that you were just kind of going down a rabbit hole?
I will say, because I did mention, a few weeks in after this happening, that it made me uncomfortable. That kind of, at first in the conversation, it was kind of frustrating that he was literally like, I'm doing nothing wrong. But it was like, you're not doing anything wrong, but it's making me uncomfortable. And that's what you're doing wrong, I think. Probably 20 minutes into the conversation, we kind of figured it out.
So it seems like you made the mistake, which I think a lot of people do in that situation, is you got defensive rather than
hearing me out.
Not necessarily. Well, I guess to a certain degree.
Right.
I mean, that's what usually like when someone comes to you and says, this makes me uncomfortable, I think that it's a natural reaction to go, well, especially if you're like, in this situation, from Matt's point of view, he's like, what?
Right.
Like it came to Matt at probably felt like out of left field. Like, I'm in love with who? Like, no.
Right. And I didn't feel like when I told you that that you doubted me, that you were like, I'm not buying this. Immediately, you were pretty much like, okay, I get the miscommunication. What frustrated me a lot more, though, was that it had gotten around to the entire group. And it was this
only
game
down. It was only one person.
Oh, well,
because it was one of our friends who told another friend who told
another friend, exactly.
But it was just like three, but it wasn't the entire friend group, and that's what I was worried about.
It was enough, though.
Yeah.
If I'm Matt, I would, even one person getting involved.
Well, that upset me too, though.
Would be because you guys have a tight friend group.
Right.
You worry about this becoming a drama-filled event with friends, and then it's a whole nother layer of what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I guess, though, let's talk about the truth. Then, can you say I love you to somebody in a non-romantical way towards a friend?
It's a great question. And to Matt's point, it begs the question of when is it okay? And at what point, and you mentioned what you said, in love, right? And now we're getting into is that semantics versus what does it all mean? And at the end of the day, do couples have the right to kind of say, wait, time out,
I don't like that.
I don't like this, and here's why. I know sometimes I've made the mistake of, even though I've had a partner say, if my partner was in your shoes and they came to me with this makes me feel uncomfortable, I made the mistake of making it feel like it was their fault for feeling the way they did, because I was like, but I'm not doing anything wrong.
Right.
And if I admit that I'm doing something wrong, then that makes it my fault, and I know I don't love this person type of thing, right? As opposed to just hearing them out and just trying to figure out, okay, well, right or wrong, why do you feel this way, and how do I stop you from feeling this way, as opposed to getting defensive.
Exactly. And that was a big thing that I straight up had to own up, is that it's not me in my place to be like, I have to immediately get defensive. I think I'm right. She's completely valid in her feeling that way. Absolutely. And so I had to do a big check within myself and go, I get how that was inappropriate, and how using it and phrasing it and even showing that much attention towards someone who I'm a fan of while I'm in a very serious relationship with can get complicated, and to be a little bit more mindful and aware of that. And even now having this conversation beforehand, our trust has been strengthened, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I think for me too, I think you kind of, when I first brought it up to you, you kind of were just like, what do you mean? That's just a friend of mine, whatever. And so you just kept doing it because you thought there was nothing wrong.
Yeah, I
So-
thought I was in a safe space. I mean, it would be the same way though. Like you love Harry Styles. If Harry Styles was in the room and you were talking to him,
I don't know if that's
well,
comparable.
I know, yeah, maybe because Harry Styles is a big megastar. I guess I'm trying to think about if it was someone on a lower, more
Obtainable.
casual scale that you would be friends with somebody.
The thing is, you had access to this person you were once a fan of.
yes.
And now that you had access to them. But let's assume that, like, and well, by the way, full on Team Harry Styles stan ever since seeing him with
Yes.
you. I was
If
with
Patricia came to the show and was like, so I slept with Harry Styles, and it could be like, acceptable, done, whatever works.
Yeah, I'd be like, yeah. Like,
That's okay.
Yeah.
Medium hall pass.
no, he's like all my.
100%.
He's also he's the top of my hall pass list now. But if let's say Patricia got access to him, it's not that out of control, like you're a public figure. You live in LA. You know other musicians. It's not the craziest thing that maybe Patricia could find herself in a room with Harry Styles.
Yeah.
And and I guess the question is like, could that trigger an insecurity?
And I will say, like, back to this whole thing, I think with the insecurity, it would be like, he would say things about her like, oh, only she could read this book, or she definitely could do this. And it was like, okay, but I can't. And so that's like,
I wouldn't.
Were
I
those
don't
your
think. I don't
exact
think.
words?
No, I would not. I would not say she's the only person who could read that book. There are tons of people who could read that book. I think she can read that book. And if you know what the book Infinite Jest is, it's by David Foster Wallace. It's a hell of a book to read.
I already know I can't read it.
Yeah,
I don't even know what it is, but-
I've been struggling to read it for years, and she expressed interest in reading it. This girl, and I go, she could read it. I didn't say she's the only one who could read it. So I guess that's why I'm upset. Is because like I didn't say that.
that's what I'm saying. I perceived it in the wrong way.
I'm with Matt on this one. That's definitely not how you said it.
I know. That's why I'm like I wouldn't have said it like that.
Right.
Right.
But it's interesting though. That's how you heard it. I think this is
Maybe
really.
that's how I wanted to hear it.
I mean, I think
in a weird
these
way.
this is the relatable shit that in relationships comes down. Like we always hear words matter. Like we hear that more than ever before with on so many levels. But in relationships, there are plenty of times where I'm a stickler for like, well, you said, and I'm like, I didn't. What? Like how?
But I also
what?
like
It's-
words matter, but context matters. So I'm like, even if you didn't say it like that, if you were going into that situation having already these thoughts and these doubts and other people noticing it, you're already on a very like thin ice with
Right.
this girl. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Anytime she's being brought up, you're gonna bring all of that back.
Right.
And I feel like sometimes that's the difference between girls and guys. If like we're like, back in May of 2019, you said that she liked purple. Like, and guys are like, what? Like,
Did I really?
we have all the
well,
data.
I do sometimes feel like, and I don't want to be generalizing at all, but sometimes in the relationships I've had, I'll generalize that much. It's this where when it's like you said, where like someone I'm in a relationship with might say, and then you said, they might throw in a word or two for color,
Mhm.
I
Yes.
suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like what, and maybe it's because I'm a literal guy where like when we're talking about what I said, I would request that you actually say what I said without any color
Right.
because like that matters. And so when like the words like always or ever or never
Or only.
only
Yes.
Yeah.
those are so significant.
Yeah. They take
and-
it from one level to the next.
But it is interesting that it can feel. But if I'm being honest, I feel like I've also, when I feel insecure, I have probably added color to my truth as well because it's how it felt.
Yeah.
I always say like no one reads text how you sent it. They read it how they're feeling in the moment.
Mm.
That's
Valid.
very true.
And that's like easy for people to be like, yeah, totally. But even when we are arguing with our partner, like we don't hear how they are feeling. We hear from how we are like, what does it say about us that you're saying?
Right.
Right.
So like what I find most interesting about the moment that just happened is that like Patricia wasn't even like trying to accuse you of anything, but it felt accusatory where it's like I didn't fucking say that.
I
like
know,
that.
and I think it's. But you know what?
And I
love-
relate to you so much in that moment.
And I love the theatrics. Like if we were having this conversation like privately, like I'd be like, okay, I can hear what you're saying, but I know that you're just
yeah.
you're saying that because that's how you feel. And I think we're on a whole set right now, and I feel like
Sure.
I'm on live news where I'm just like, hold on, babe. That's not what we talked about, and that's not really what happened. And so I get like nervous and vulnerable because we're in this type
100%.
of environment. But I think, though, it just comes down to like, I get how she's feeling, and I completely understand it. We all have like different interests that we find other people who have those interests in. Not in us in a relationship, we're not always going to be interested in the same topics, and that's totally okay. You love sports. I don't watch sports at all. I'm interested in like, movies and stuff. And sometimes I'll find myself talking with someone who has that shared interest, and I'll geek out about it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That just because I'm talking about a certain subject with somebody else doesn't mean that like I don't know.
Well,
Do
I get what you're saying.
you get
I
where
get what
I'm
you're
like
saying.
going
Right.
Well,
down?
what you're saying, part of it is what you're dealing with is the fact that you mentioned Patricia likes sports and you don't.
Yeah.
Now, generally speaking, that's against the grain, so to speak. Like, I'm a huge sports fan, and I have plenty of guy friends to geek out about my
Right.
fandom with sports. And some of your interests, Matt, seem to align with things that either women are creators of or just enjoy talking to, which it just creates a dynamic in your guys' relationship that could just be a triggering event. It just triggers an insecurity potentially. Like I don't care how confident you are, and I'm a pretty confident guy who's very secure in my relationship, but like at a certain point, like if I saw Natalie talking to like I guess any guy, something Natalie and I will joke about, but there's always a level of truth in like every joke, which is like if we're interacting with like other people, like Natalie's been like really getting into her fitness and working out a lot. So she has all these male trainers. And I always kind of was like, so what's he look like? Like, what do you think his interest in you is?
Yeah.
But it's
Right.
like, I'm trying to determine what the risk factors are, which are kind of silly because I trust her.
Right.
And whatever he looks like or whatever his interest in her should be irrelevant and ultimately is irrelevant.
Right.
Nevertheless, I find myself asking questions like that. And she does the same thing. And it's just like such a hard balance in a relationship to still be able to like have these conversations. Because ultimately what these conversations mean is we're not always as confident about our relationships as much as we like to think we are. And ultimately maybe are overall, but like it is okay for us to like feel insecure without making the other person feel like they're doing something overall wrong.
Right.
Because just because you say, hey, babe, that bothers me, and can you be more mindful of this going forward?
What do y'all think about this? I feel like I haven't looked you guys in the eye because I've been just like nervous this entire time.
Well, I was just curious for you, Patricia, like conversely, what are some things that he does when you're both out that make you feel very like cared for or seen or like he's being attentive? Like, what does it look like when it's going well?
Just coming up and talking to me or just checking in, basically. Like, I don't need him by my side the entire time. Just like acknowledging that I'm his girlfriend, I guess.
Totally.
Because every other time you do.
In Matt's mind, he could be thinking, well, if I'm being like factual here, I know I talk to her 20% of the night, which by anyone's definition is not the majority and certainly not only. But you could be thinking you talk to her way more than anyone else, which is also could be true because the rest of the time he just kind of floated around the room and he seemed to be the most invested in that conversation. And for Matt's thinking, because I'm a fucking fan of the shit she does, and you're wondering, but why?
Okay, that night I'm talking about, we were on a party bus. You never even once knew that I was even on it. You sat next to her the entire time. Then we get in an
I don't
Uber.
like moving around on party buses.
Then we get in
I'm
an
sorry.
Uber.
I don't like moving around on party buses. It's a safety hazard. Sit in your spot
That is
and
not
enjoy
true.
it. I don't
That
like it.
is
There's
not
there's
true.
drinks and stuff, people moving around. I've known people who've broken ankles on party buses. Happen to be sitting across so
This
and
is
so.
a PSA.
And we were just chatting, and it's loud, I can't like have a
Okay,
conversation
and then we go
with
straight
everybody
from
else.
the party bus to straight to talking to her, straight to the next bar to talking to her. From my point of view, maybe from your point of view, there were some times that I went to the bathroom, you were talking to somebody else. But anytime I laid eyes on you, you were talking to her.
Babe, I hear you out completely, but that's not the case at all. Like I don't text this person that much in deep conversations behind your back. We don't see this person that often. We don't
Wait, what do
see
you
them
mean by
that-
behind your back? Because it's like,
Meaning like if I'm not like
Yeah.
hiding, like the
Yeah.
conversations are continuing when we're not in person anymore. None of that's happening. It's just at a party we're catching up, and it's someone I'm a fan of. And if there was someone else who you were a fan of and you wanted to talk to him, go for it. I want that for you.
And I didn't even realize that he was a fan of her beforehand either. So there's that.
Oh, that was the first thing when I first met them. And I said, when I first met them, I go, I'm a huge fan. Huge fan. One of the first things I said. And I should have told you how much of a fan I was of this person before. And I didn't. And I apologize.
It's okay. I apologize for accusing you.
I know, but it's just funny because it's like not how I feel at all. And the only reason why I'm getting nervous is because, we're repicking this back up and we're sharing it with
Yeah.
the world. And it's just hilarious that you actually at moments thought I really did love this person, because that's not the case. The only person I'm in love with is you. And I mean
Thank
that
you.
from the bottom of my heart. And I hope that you don't have that type of insecurity in me as we continue to move forward in life together, because
Well, I think that's key, is to always be communicating with each other.
absolutely.
So-
And I will be and we still do that. Like, I'm so happy that we did have this argument though, and we did have this issue, because it clarified a lot between us and it made our relationship stronger,
well, sure.
'Cause
Because
I-
ideally, it poked. I assume. Correct me if I'm wrong. That it poked holes in ways that you had been communicating,
Right.
which I think this happens all the time. When things are going well in relationships, it's just like, hey, we're great.
You-
We haven't fought or
right.
we're good, but in the moment of things going well, sometimes that could just be a product of of conflict not presenting itself. And when
Yeah.
conflict doesn't present itself, you don't really require
That-
certain tools
Right.
to get over those things. And sometimes it's only until conflict comes up. That's why your first fight's always really, I think, scary in a relationship, because you're wait, now I have to utilize
Tools that
tools
never used.
that I never used here. And what does that mean? And how are we going to talk? And so this situation obviously poked holes in how you guys had been communicating, because you hadn't needed to
Right.
think about these things.
right.
And it didn't mean that Matt was in love with someone, and it didn't mean that you are actually worried, but it made you realize that there is a world in which I can feel insecure because I need more from my partner from a communication standpoint, or to be more present. I can be aloof and in my thoughts and not self-aware. As much as I really try to be self-aware, but sometimes I struggle with really being present.
right.
And part of it is because when I'm my most present, I feel really exposed and vulnerable,
Yeah. that
because
makes sense.
I feel like if I really enjoy myself, then and not that I'm worried, but it's just what if I say or do something I shouldn't say or do? And so I'm just an overthinker that way.
Right.
But sometimes when I'm enjoying friends, or in unhealthy relationships I had in the past, it would be shit like this, where it's just well, why were you talking to them for so long, or X, Y, and Z? And you're
Right.
thinking, wait, did I do something? Did I do something wrong?
Right.
I didn't realize, because my intention wasn't. And we're talking intention is so important. And so, yeah, I can see how this could be a net positive, even though it's a
Exactly.
sensitive issue. So my question to both of you is, what did you guys talk about in terms of how would you guys communicate this differently, both of you, to avoid something like this happening in the future? Because this situation almost certainly will come up again.
I think first off, giving each other the benefit of the doubt
Absolutely.
is key. And then also just after having the first conversation, is also trusting the entire the relationship as a whole. Unless it gets to a point where you need to say something, I feel I would immediately raise my concerns to you instead of just holding it in, because I feel I'm a type of person that just keeps everything in instead of like really talking about it. So I think in the future, just like benefit of the doubt, and then also being open and honest and trusting of my partner.
I have a question for you. I don't know your relationship history.
I hadn't dated anybody since I was in high school.
Oh, so this is your first serious relationship?
I would say so, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, though, that does echo into our relationship at
Sure.
times. And there's nothing wrong with not having had a previous relationship, but there are some like hurdles that like I've been through in the past, and then we get to it, and I'm like, oh, we got to work through some things because I guess, I don't know. There's just moments in relationships that happen that if it's your first time, it may be tough to deal with.
I get exactly what you're worried about. But also, too, because like you had dated.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between dating
and being in a relationship.
And being in a relationship that scratches the surface of something that is just based off of like, that's the problem with relationships, is that we have high expectations of them and put so much trust in people. And it's very scary to feel truly vulnerable.
Yes.
Like I actually kind of had this like moment at Coachella where I was like just thinking about my relationship, and like as someone who's had multiple partners and multiple breakups and heartbreak and just disappointment, there's a part of me that has learned to like move on from things. But there's probably a wall there that I have. And the more my relationship with Natalie progresses, like if Natalie breaks up with me today, like I know I'll be okay.
Right.
I know that. But I also recognize that I've become closer and closer with her, that while I'm sure in the big picture might be okay, that I won't be okay right away. And I'll probably be worried that I won't get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's a scary to feel. And I think that's not something when you can't prepare for that feeling until you're in a relationship. And the first time you feel it,
You're very good
wild.
at this, Nick. You're very good at this. No, you're just
because when you were saying that,
all day
feel,
thinking
I
about it.
I know. I guess like I hardly like sit here and like talk about just relationships and like I don't know, maturity and growth and all of it. And you're very good and you're very well spoken about it. So it's interesting being in like this seat,
Thank
having
you.
to
Well,
like
thank you for
reflect about
trusting
it.
me.
I will say in the beginning of our relationship, it was definitely both of us having to break down walls because he came out of a very bad past relationship. And there were walls that you were having to break, and also me not understanding why you were still getting over this person.
Yeah. Well, that's why I asked the question, because I
Right,
was
because-
wondering if the way you felt this way was triggered by like a past boyfriend, but quite the opposite.
Right. And it was more just like, why are you having to get over this person still while we were in a healthy, good relationship? Because I've never been through a heartbreak like that he went through, as well as like during this, I'm like, why am I feeling insecure about this when I know that
And
we're
sometimes
okay?
we always thought like, oh, well, let's talk about these things. When we start dating, it's just like, oh, well, you had a bad breakup. You haven't had a serious relationship. So what does that mean? And then you talk about it. You're like, oh, we got it covered.
Right.
But you often don't really know how it's going to feel until it happens.
Right.
Until you have the feeling that is a result of whatever past that you do have.
Right.
And then it feels a little like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Uncharted grounds or uncharted waters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be it can be a scary, vulnerable moment as a result.
I feel like in a very
vulnerable
place where like I don't know.
Oh, I'm enjoying it.
It's not easy it's not easy to talk about.
I know. I don't know.
We appreciate
I guess I just feel insecure or a little naked. I
mean, clearly we're looking at a relationship where two people love each other and care about how the other person feels. And it just, I relate to you on this a lot, Matt, because the little bit I do know about you, like you care about the people you love and put a lot of effort into it. So like when you feel like you're disappointing your partner in a way, whether you did it it's just so easy to feel defensive and you want to get credit for how much the work you put into trying to make your partner happy. I feel that a lot. I don't know if that's a guy thing or that's just how I feel, and Matt relates, but it's just very easy to get defensive, which I think is the key and the biggest takeaway of this conversation is that our getting defensive is something we have to be mindful of, because you can put in a ton of effort and work and love our partner, and still your partner still is allowed to say, this bothered me, or I didn't like that you do that. And then the partner doing that, I think, needs to be careful just about the color they add. knowing that you're talking to someone who puts a lot of effort in your relationship, because it just like,
And it makes it seem like I'm doubting him, or it's kind of rude.
Well, it's human. It's human. We like to end these segments with saying something that we love about our partners and how they make us feel. Always ending on a good note. So whoever wants to start is welcome to.
I'll go first because he's always better at this. I love the way you love all my friends, and also love just like to be with me at all times, and just I love the way we just love to do fun things together at all times. Love the way you always love me, love my family. Yeah.
Well, what I love about you, Patricia, is how much constant joy you have every single day. There is nobody I know who probably smiles more than her throughout a single day. And I love how infectious that is. You make my days so much brighter. I love how kind you are to strangers. Like there's no one else who is nicer to anybody than you. And then I love how much you love your family. I love all of your values, your top values of your life. You hold near and dear to your heart. I admire your faith, and I admire how much you care for your friends too. You're there for every single one of them, and you help them no matter what. You're like one of the least selfish people I know.
Thank you.
Completely.
Incapable of loving anyone more than he loves you, with all those things.
Absolutely.
This has been great, guys. I really appreciate it.
It has been great. It's been a fun ride. That's for sure. But no, I'm glad that we brought this out, because I like helping other people
get through
who
the
are
same
going
thing.
through this similar thing in our situation. Didn't know it would be as deep as this got to, but Nick, you're very good at this.
You're very good. Thank you for having us on.
Thanks.
And we got to do a game night soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd love that. I really appreciate it, guys.
Hey,
Thank you. We
guys
appreciate
so much.
it.
And
It's
thank you
fun.
guys for being here too.
It was a lot of
problem.
fun. This might be collectively one of my favorite episodes we've ever done with Clayton, Susie, and Matt and Patricia.
And it's
Well,
only
thank you.
8 hours
Honest.
That's it.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
listening, guys. Thank you to Matt and Patricia. Thank you to Clayton and Susie. Thank you to Kale Lowry for yesterday's show. Go back and check out our Ask Nick episodes if you like this relationship shit. Maybe you're turning in to listen to Matt and Patricia, and you're not that familiar with our show. We talk a lot about this stuff on Mondays, and we have these mediation calls on every Going Deeper episode, which this is what you're listening to. Subscribe, rate, review, all that fun stuff. Join us next week on Tuesday with Morgan Epsher as we, freestyle it with your latest and greatest. We'll probably talk about the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard of it all, any updates. And then Ellie Zeiler on Wednesday for Going Deeper. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great week. Hey guys, thanks for watching, but before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos like our Mondays Ask Nick for your favorite relationship stories and advice, and our Tuesday Bachelor recaps. See you next time.